Hello and welcome to this week's track guide on Circuit of the Americas, or CotA for short. I'm Fraser and I'll go ahead and talk you through a lap later on. But first of all, some quick facts. We have 20 turns, we have 2 DRS zones. The DRS detection zone for the back straight is just before the hairpin, and the detection zone for the start-finish straight is just after the long right-hander in Sector 3, in the middle of Sector 3. Tire choice, you have C4, C3, C2, so C4 is the softest, C2 is the hardest, which essentially still means that you're most likely going to end up doing a medium to hard or hard to medium, depending on if the formation lap in your league works. Concerning rain, you shouldn't be expecting any rain, but just for practice, doing a couple of laps in the wet is always a good thing to do. Without further ado though, first of all, the hot lap, then after that I will talk you through it, and at the end you will see the setup.
Last lap was a 1:32.0.
As you might have seen at the beginning of the hot lap, I'm taking quite a wide line right here. That is in order for me to build up a bit more speed, get a bit more distance between me and the finish line in order to get that speed. It gains you around 2 to 300, so you should definitely do it, especially when you're doing qualifying. Then, opening up the DRS, you can say much more to the right here, in order to go ahead and mount that red and white curb. With this ride height that I have at the moment, which is 7.4, you get kind of slowed down at the end. So either you go ahead and raise the ride height, or you just do the line as I do. The advantage of that red and white curb line is you have a better entry angle, and you can go for a slightly later apex, which lets you build more speed towards the exit. So, upper braking zone, very easy to go full brakes for a long time. You only need to watch out when it starts to level that you get off the brakes. Otherwise, you'll, because of the different load that the tire experiences, you'll either lock up or just shoot out wide. Then, as for your brake marker, this black signal box on the right hand side is your brake marker. Down to 4th gear, get as close to the inside curb as possible. Don't hit that orange sausage curb on the inside, that unsettles you quite a lot. Even this red and white curb unsettles you a tiny bit, but it's manageable if you know what it does to your car. Then late apex, 4th gear still. Very important not to go full throttle on the exit, since you have a lot more weight on the front tires, which means the rear has like less load on them, which makes it easier to spin up because you have quite a lot of power, right? So be very careful. Around 150 kph, you should be able to go flat out. So keep it at around 85-90% throttle on the exit. Then, to minimize a bit of distance, you can ride this red and white curb. Be very careful. You will see it at the end of the S's. This curb can really just spin you out and unsettle your car quite heavily. So Be very careful when you do that. Then for the S's, left-hand side tire for the orange sausage curb. It's essentially the same for the next two. Right-hand side tire, sausage curb. Left-hand side tire, sausage curb without lifting. Very important in the S's to be very decisive with your turn-in points. You want to go for a early apex on all of them, so you can go ahead and set yourself up for the next corner very well. Then, for the last part of the S's, get on that red and white curb and nearly miss this orange sausage curb. Very important that you get as close to that as well. That's sort of your first apex for this double apex corner. Then, just a small dab on the brakes, keep in mind that you shouldn't be getting on this red and white curb too much. Same as when you get onto the S's right here after turn 1. It can unsettle your car really, really heavily. So only keep the right-hand side tire on a red and white curb because it also gives you a bit of rotation. Then for the next corner, turning point is essentially just before the black signal box right there. That's also your brake point. If you even want to brake, you can do it with a slight lift. Then for the next corner, which after wrapping my head around this corner, gave me a lot of time. So you want to carry as much speed through this corner as possible, which means you need a bit of a wider entry than the racing line suggests. Then, very important, stay in 5th gear and don't follow the racing line at all. The red and white curb is your racing line. The right-hand side tire on this red part, left-hand side tire on the tarmac, so you don't invalidate. You can, in some cases, even go with the left-hand side tire on a red and white curb, but that's really too close for comfort. Then, always, you see there directly after I get on the curb, I immediately go 30 to 35% on the throttle. That is because I want to engage the on-throttle differential, makes it harder to spin, as well as making it easier to keep that minimum speed. Back to the racing line. The racing line for this corner is the red and white curb. So you want to stay on this red and white curb until it ends right there, just before it ends right there, and then turn to the left, keeping 5th gear for a really, really good exit. I left the curb way too early, which made me lose time, as you see on the top right. Very important. Once you straighten the car out, you can go a bit harder on the throttle. Then as you get past here, because you're going uphill and the car is, you are also turning as well, it's very easy to lose the car. So about 60 to 70% brake throttle application right there. On the exit, try to use as much on the exit as you possibly can, just to make sure that you have a stable exit. Then for this corner, essentially cut it as much as you can. If you put the left-hand side tire around midway of this red part, you're going to invalidate. For this little hairpin in the middle of sector 2, about 75 meters, you can also try to spot either this dust puddle or this one, which means like 10 meters before this one. Then down to 4th gear, very important. It's kind of a mini turn 1 where you have this uphill section right here, and then you can't see the racing line, so that means you're dropping down, or you can see it very good on the left right here next to the advertisement board. You can see essentially the track kind of going up and then immediately dipping down. So what you want to do is brake hard when you're going uphill, keep the steering straight. As soon as you go over this uphill, like a little small hill, a little mountain, not mountain, little small hill, you want to go ahead and get off the brakes, because again you're changing the load of the tires, as well as turning in down to 4th gear. Very important to immediately go off the brakes right here, otherwise you will shoot out too wide or you will lock up. Then get as close to the inside curb without touching the red and white curb. The red and white curb unsettles your car, and it's very easy to spin if you do that, and you lose a ton of time down the straight as well. On the exit, very careful with the throttle application, down in 4th gear, and then going onto the back straight. Opening up the DRS, then coming to the last corner of sector 2. Keep your steering completely smooth on this straight, just not to lose any time. Then your brake marker for this is the 100-meter board, down to 4th gear. Try to have the middle of your car sort of aligned with this part of the sausage curb. The sausage curb is kind of like a pyramid, where left hand side is flat, right hand side is flat, but in the middle it's sort of too high. Down to fourth gear, try to cut it more than me without invalidating. Then on the exit, very smooth on the power. Don't go out too wide. The red and white curb is okay, but the sausage curbs, they are just going to mess you up. Then at the end of sector 2, starting sector 3, sort of when you have 3 red bars on the left hand side on the curb, that's your brake marker. Down to fourth gear, just slightly miss that orange sausage curb. Try to go as wide as possible and get the car straight as early as possible, because you want to be on the power as soon as possible as well. Fourth gear, still keeping that. Don't go full throttle when you're not straight, especially in this part, because you see in this braking zone, you're going up a hill, and then when you're like sort of on the top of this hill, you can go a little bit harder on the throttle, and you're then going downhill, more weight on the front tires, which means more grip on the front tires, but it's also easier to spin. Once you're like around this red and white curb on the right hand side, that's your point where you can say you can go full throttle, especially if you have a sort of centered steering wheel. Up to fifth gear, and then for this corner, very difficult braking zone. You want to not to be too harsh on the brake application, otherwise you'll just lock up, since you are approaching the braking zone kind of not in a straight way, but in a curved way. You want to go for a late apex as well. So like, it's basically just how you feel doing this corner. I can't really tell you how to do it. I guess follow the racing line in that case. Go for late apex. Get as close to the inside as possible next to the orange sausage curb. By the way, drinking game for the amount of times I said orange sausage curb, if anyone fancies that. Keeping fourth gear, but before you get to the apex, way before, you already want to go on the throttle, because you want to engage that own throttle differential to make it harder to spin your car, because it's very easy to spin your car on the exit of this corner. What this also is doing is giving you a bit more speed, which essentially lets you build more downforce for the exit. Don't be too hard on the throttle. Like when you sort of go down into the corner, you can go a bit hard on the throttle, since you have a lot of, like, you don't go too fast and you don't have too much load on the tires, so it's easier to do that. Once you go uphill those, you want to lift off the throttle a tiny bit and then just carry yourself out wide to the next to this red and white curb. Don't go onto this red and white curb, it usually unsettles your car. Then going flat out as soon as possible, or as early as you are comfortable with. For these, for like the Turkey turn 9 sort of deal, you want to stay as much to the inside as possible. Up to 7th gear. Then for this corner, very difficult braking zone. Right hand side, again, this digital Marshall post is your brake marker and your turning point as well. Try to keep the speed up here as hard as you can, or as high as you can. You can clip this orange sausage curb. You can, like, it doesn't unsettle your car too much, as I did in this clip right here, where I just completely ride it. Then as soon as you get to the apex, you already want to be almost full throttle. You don't want to lose too much speed in this corner, because it's quite crucial. Then for the last corner, stay on this red and white curb. It kind of bottoms you out, but it gives you a better entry angle into the last corner. Then for the last corner, you see the right hand side Marshall post. This one right here, that's again your brake marker and sort of your turning point directly after that. For the inside, you want to get as close to the orange sausage curb as you can. And then on the exit, just be very careful. Don't go onto this red and white curb, because like accelerating on that curb is impossible. Like, you'll most likely spin out or lose a ton of time. Opening up the DRS and then just keep the car straight, and that is a lap around CotA. Let's quickly go with the setups. So for setup wise, 37-34, a bit more than Spain. Then transmission 53-50. Then for suspension geometry, right, left. Suspension 3-1-2-1-7-4. As I said at the beginning of, like, when we were at turn 1, you can increase the ride height to help a bit with the curb riding. Brakes 150. Tires minimum front, maximum rear. But in the race situation, I haven't driven this setup in the race. If you see setups like this, decrease the left or like the pressures from maximum to like 2 to 3 clicks from minimum to the right. Otherwise, you're going to have a very bad time, and it's just a habit you need to get comfortable with. Thanks for watching this track guide. I'm Fraser, and I hope we will see each other on the racetrack.